of my session really is to look at the cultural aspects, the innovation which has arisen over the last 12 months in relation to how we work and how it's going to continue to evolve, or it needs to continue to evolve if businesses are going to capitalise on the opportunities that have been presented over the last 15 months. And we might think that, hybrid working, what do I mean by hybrid working? Well, the reality is we were thrust, or many of us were thrust into remote working when everybody was dealing with something completely different for the first time. And that is quite different from what's going to happen now as we open up, where we're going to have some people who are at home potentially, because many businesses are looking as a differentiator. Businesses I've been working with, they've talked to their people, and people do not want to go back into the office as they used to. They don't want to be back on the commute. So they're looking at hybrid working environments. And actually that is way more complicated than when everybody's in exactly the same position. So based on the work that I've been doing with a number of businesses over the last 6 to 8 months really, but overall 15 months where we've been looking at hybrid management, I'm just going to run through some top tips, the things that we've evolved by talking at focus groups that have become quite practical. But I'm CEO, founder of Actus, that's my day job. And the link probably just to make there is that the software that we provide has come into its own in many ways, in terms of as businesses went to work remotely, and maybe again as they go hybrid, the management skills that are needed to get the best out of the workforce, they need to be more structured. It actually shone a light on the fact that many people in this country, don't actually have basic people management skills, because as a country, not as a business, we haven't historically invested in it. Now, I'm not going to talk about that through this, but around it is really the framework that our managers, if we're going to be in a hybrid environment that's successful, we do need to step up our ability to get the best out of people through shorter term objectives and regular conversations, and being quite people and human centric. The software we offer does help that, but fundamentally what I want to talk about here is the culture. So what became very clear when we were all moved a year ago to work remotely was that certain cultures felt more comfortable about it than others. We heard horror stories in the papers about where people were forced into open Zoom meetings so they could be kept an eye on, and they weren't even daring to leave their desk to go to the loo or get a coffee. Then on the opposite end of it, you've got people that are leading from example, saying go out and walk the dog, get the exercise in, are treating you like an adult. These are the outputs I expect from you. Please deliver them in the way and the time frame that is available to you. So opposite ends of the scale. And the reality is that that hierarchical paternalistic culture, we really didn't bring out the best in people. It's creating, many of us were concerned about well-being or a stress pandemic, presenteeism where it's worse at the moment when people are working at home. Digital presenteeism can be worse than presenteeism in the office, because at least people used to think, oh, at least I can go home, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock. People are feeling they have to respond to electronic emails all day, all year round, all time. It's really about us taking a step back and going, hang on, we're employing adults. We employ them because we believe they've got key talents, and we have to encourage that adult to adult mindset in our line managers. Now, that said, if we're going to carry out an adult to adult mindset, we do need to set the expectations of the people, and we have a cultural expectation from those that work for us. So in return for that adult to adult, I'm going to trust you, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go to the gym and walk the dog at lunchtime. I'm also going to expect from you that you are part of an interdependent ecosystem. If you want to continue to have these freedoms to work at home, we still have to be able to collaborate. We have to work out, be creative about how we onboard people, how we share ideas. These are the sort of things that people have concerns about: information sharing, the organic coffee machine ideas and things like that. But it isn't impossible to do that remotely, but you've got to think harder about how you achieve it. And people who, if they're given the choice as to be a hybrid worker or a fully remote worker, they need to recognise that they have responsibilities in terms of being responsive, not having their out of office on all the time, being available when people need them, and actually, if they are going to be in an office, choosing which location is going to best enable them to be interdependent and support this overall business requirement. So I think sometimes people have got into this slight mindset that we're in a silo over the last, maybe almost this sort of hunkering down or mindset where it's all about just sort of survival and just doing my little bit. But for us to succeed in this hybrid workplace, we're going to have to think bigger. There are businesses definitely that have done better than they had done previously in this environment. But it's about the individual again and the line manager helping people think about, if we enable you to meet your needs and preferences, you know, you can pick the kids up from school, but you can't look after them when they have school. We've got team needs. We've also got our customer needs. We've got business needs. The reality is that we've got to all act like grown-ups to recognize that for this to be sustainable, a hybrid working future to be sustainable, we need a win-win mindset between ourselves and our line managers, ourselves and the business. So it's creating technology, it's creating frameworks, and it's having that sort of grown-up longer-term view of to how can we all work together in order to deliver what the customer needs and what the business needs. And if we do that, we can do it bigger and better than we ever did it before. But how do we do it? Well, going into the tech side of things, these are just practicalities. I'm not going to say which ones to use or otherwise. What I'm saying is that the businesses I've worked with have found that there's often confusion because everyone was thrust into home working quite quickly. In certain businesses, if they didn't have an established communication tool, for example, and I'm agnostic about which one it is that they have, but if they haven't got one, then you'll find that you have got multiple tools. So whether it's Zoom, Teams, Yammer, Skype, you name it, people are using all sorts of tools, WhatsApp, and it becomes confusing, and it also becomes overload because you find that people are then trying to get hold of others through multiple channels. They're bombarding them through multiple routes. So from a business point of view, as we prepare to go back to a longer sort of stage way of working in this hybrid environment, think about clarity around what is our business's way of doing things. How do we allow the asynchronous communication and collaboration on the chat? So setting up groups for us to be able to share ideas even when we're not on the same time. So you don't have to be on a meeting every day, all day, and you don't have any time to do things. Think about things like standardizing content, training content, and using technology to find little videos like this, exactly what we're doing here, so you can get that, access that information as and when you need it, helping people to be much more productive and not having to be all in the same place at the same time. So there's something there about establishing the right collaboration tools and technological landscape. And then on top of that, there's something about behaviors. So the businesses that I'm working with that are doing this really well are being overt about the behaviors. So we talk about culture, we talk about culture change. The reality is that culture is how we do things around here. And we will have all, within the businesses we work in, established some sort of remote working culture, positively or negatively. Now is the time for the business leaders to think about, well, actually what's working, what isn't about that. And the way to change it is about modeling a different way and telling people what the expectations are. Again, we didn't have time when we were forced into remote working to plan how we would do it, but we do now have the insights into where we are and where we want to be for the future and for the long term. These are the sort of things that I've had people come out of the focus groups and just the sort of irritations, the things that stop people. It's fascinating. Some businesses I work with, everybody turns their camera on straight away. Others I work with, no one puts the camera on. It makes a massive difference to the level in which people are interacting and the collaboration landscape, the feel you have for a business and the culture. Think, what kind of culture do you want for your business or the business you're in or for your team, and lead that is what I would suggest. My sixth point really is aimed at line managers, I suppose, but anybody in a business is, am I truly open-minded? We've all got our own biases, and we all have views on certain people. So even though I might think I'm treating people as adults, but actually challenging our own biases. If you're a line manager, if you're working with others, are you being clear about what people need to achieve in terms of outputs? Because when we're remote, we don't want to jump on a call. You can't just ask the person next to you what we need to achieve. And we need to be autonomous. It's very hard to be autonomous if we don't have clear goals and objectives. And as I said earlier, those are relatively rare. How are we using the tech? There's so many tools actually that when you think about it, I mean, I've been using Zoom for webinars, and it's amazing once you get the hang of it, how much interactivity you can actually achieve out of it. You get people using the various things there, and there's very many clever technological tools. I was using interactive whiteboards the other day. It was probably more effective than being in a classroom, if I'm honest. So think about how we can be creative and how we're going to manage. If you're in a meeting, this is one of the biggest pain points, is virtual meetings when we're back in the office. You've got some people in the office and some people out of the office. Before, when you're just the one on the phone on an all-day meeting, that's so tedious. So how do we get the benefits of face-to-face without leaving people out? And then my final point, I suppose this is my word of hybrid, actually, is the way I keep landing up, is I believe to make hybrid working effective is it's all going to be about being intentional, and by that I mean that it's achievable, but we can't just be spontaneous. Previously you could just pop into the office and you'd bump into who you bumped into, and you'd have the coffee machine chat or whatever it was, and you'd have those informal osmosis relationships. It's nothing to mean you can't do that anymore, but maybe we just have to set up a meeting, make the effort, attend a social meeting, even if we are fed up of whatever the social interactions are. Just have to think and make the effort to do those, because it absolutely is possible. It means we have to do longer range diary management rather than leaving things to chance. So if you're in an organisation with multiple offices, maybe communicating which office that you're going to be in and blocking a day in exactly the same way as some of us would have blocked a day in London or Manchester and tried to see many people at the same time. But we have to take responsibility for prioritising time for relationship building as well, I believe, in this hybrid working environment, and all of us need to take a responsibility to do that. So the message to all of us is we have to act like adults if we're given that opportunity to be treated like adults. And the benefit of that, of course, means we have much greater work-life balance in many ways. It's a massive step forward in terms of people's quality of life if we can make sure that we balance the other aspects of it. And those are some of my tips as to how we might do that. When we move to the remote working, we go to hybrid working, what was very interesting is the human element for me became more important. So connecting with people and just remembering that all of this technology, it's so exciting in terms of its potential, but we can create monsters. So we just have to be intentional about it. And let's remember the human bit so that we get what we want out of it, and use it to its best benefit, as opposed to, we become absorbed by it. It's running our lives and our productivity is affected. So for me, it's about being intentional and remembering that human aspect to maximize the benefits.